Maybe he'd be a random dude in the Middle East, or maybe he'd become maybe he'd become a Ukrainian politician, or maybe he'd been a Spanish novelist. I'm actually going to say something. If someone masters several careers to a high degree consequentially, like that's super improbable, right? Say Arnold Schwarzenegger being both an extremely good bodybuilder and running for governor and succeeding. I bet if you reran history all over again from Arnold Schwarzenegger's birth, he might become president of Austria. He might become head of a technological entrepreneur. He might become a technological entrepreneur. He might become the head of a mercenary outfit, or he might become a Hollywood actor all over again, right? Meanwhile, I think that if you ran the universe where the person that, you know, has the super nice sounding cookie cutter standard career, you know, you rerun that person's career in a different world, I think they're still a very high grade careerist, but they ultimately are climbing ladders. They're not building ladders, right? They're climbing someone else's ladder. Someone else designed that career track for them. It's not objective, right? Harvard's not objective. The career tracks are not objective. They're arbitrary. At their very best, they can be the equivalent to the Roman cursus honorum, which is the sequence of posts you make people go through to show their worth. But the exact obstacle course is super arbitrary, right? And super contingent. Yeah. So that's what I would say, right? And note, when you rerun the universe, does that person really outcompete other people who are super similar? Maybe that super standard cookie cutter career is also improbable. That person, to get at the end of the cookie cutter career, had to outcompete 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 people trying to do a cookie cutter career. The live player only needed to outcompete, you know, 2-3 people maybe.
So if I could paraphrase what I'm getting from you, this live player concept isn't necessarily only helpful as an analysis tool. It's potentially helpful also as like a personal action tool. It could give you extra confidence if you are different or weird.
With the caution that being a live player can get you killed. like literally Soviet dissidents, right? They were live players, right? Or you might become a billionaire or something, and or you might end up being a writer who's recognized after your time and just live like a miserable life until that, right?
So what's the difference between being a live player and simply going for higher risk, higher reward? I mean, I always think of the Joe Heinrich thing, like tradition is smarter than you. Like most of the time when you question tradition, like the base rate is you're going to be wrong. There is a lot of accumulated wisdom in tradition. So what's the difference there?
It's very difficult to describe from the inside, but it's super apparent that some people routinely outperform tradition. Well, I think what they actually do is they understand the reason the tradition was there in the first place. Chesterton Spence, right? The argument of Chesterton Spence applies for a fence that you don't know the purpose of. If you know exactly who and why put the fence there, then of course you can safely take it down when those circumstances are matched. And I think that, yeah, it's very difficult to get there. I think principles include original thought with openness to unusual information channels, involve developing some charisma while being kind of either asocial or mildly antisocial. Something's going wrong, because I think that connection is like heroin for people, right? They love being close to other individuals. And if it means smothering over awkward ideas to be so close to others, I think this is human nature that we do this. So this is, if you actually think I'm flipping the usual sheep thing on its head. Usually it's a claim that, you know, humans are sheep, this is bad, they're just cowardly. I actually think it might be this desire to be so close to other minds that, so it's the love that causes people to be all the same. So I actually think it's probably coming from a positive, not from a negative impulse. Though fear can also be used to like tamp down variation. But I think most of the lack of variation that we see, this kind of clustering in human distributions, I think that's because of our desire for connection, essentially. Right? People sometimes want to be great writers because they want to be closer in spirit to the writer that greatly inspired them, right? So it can be also an inspiration to be an outlier. So if I have something, it's like, you know, develop deep empathy that doesn't overlook flaws to these unusual, exceptional people, And perhaps, you know, even if you don't want to be one, consider helping one or finding one, right? The self-interested Randian angle on this might be, you know, you don't have to take all the risks. You can just help someone else's risk, you know, have a better risk reward payoff, have their payoff curve be slightly higher, and take your share. You know, the equivalent of VC of humans or something. Though, God, please let's not coin that as a term for Twitter bios. God.